He never looked at me like that before. I noticed it first thing that morning. The sun poured through the windows, warm and golden, but it didn't compare to the way he was looking at me. It was subtle, almost easy to miss, but I felt it immediately. His eyes stayed on me longer than usual. Something was different. I had known him for years. We had shared family dinners, holidays, quiet evenings, and the occasional argument. I thought I knew him completely, but today it was like I was seeing him for the first time. Not as someone I lived with, not as someone who was just part of the background. Today, he seemed alive in a new way. I was in the kitchen, trying to flip pancakes without burning them. The smell of butter and vanilla filled the room. I hummed to myself, lost in the rhythm of the morning. I didn't hear him come in. Then he spoke. "Are you okay?" His voice was soft, but it made me pause. I turned toward him, spatula in hand. His eyes held something I hadn't seen before. Care, curiosity, admiration. A small part of me panicked. Why was I noticing this now? "I'm fine," I said, though my voice sounded shaky. He stepped closer, closer than usual. I noticed the way the light hit his hair, the way his eyes seemed warmer, softer. The tiny smile that appeared on his lips was nothing extraordinary on its own, but in that moment, it felt like the sun had risen inside my chest. We stood there, quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that hums with something unspoken. I wanted to speak, but I didn't know how. My mind raced with ordinary things, pancakes, errands, grocery lists, but they all felt meaningless compared to the way he was looking at me. He finally broke the silence. "I've never told you this, but you amaze me," he said. His voice was almost a whisper. "Every day, in ways you don't even realize." My heart skipped. I couldn't answer. I just stood there, feeling it sink in. All these years, I had lived alongside him, and yet he was telling me something new, something important. My hands trembled slightly as I held the spatula. For a moment, I studied him, really studied him. His face, the subtle lines around his eyes, the way he held himself. I realized I had never paid attention to these details before. I had always assumed I knew him, but today I saw him as if for the first time. And in some strange way, I think he saw me the same way. He smiled again, small but genuine. It wasn't teasing, it wasn't casual, it was meant for me, just me. That smile made my chest tighten and my stomach flutter. It felt new, exciting, a little terrifying. The pancakes on the stove were forgotten. I tried to smile back, but it came out nervous, uncertain. He noticed, and his expression softened. He didn't rush me. He didn't need me to say anything. He just stayed there, letting the moment stretch. The ordinary morning had turned extraordinary. I realized then that life could shift in a second, that years of familiarity didn't mean we knew everything about each other, that even people we see every day can surprise us. I blinked back a tear, though I didn't want him to see. I didn't want to break the spell of this quiet, perfect moment. I had never felt so connected to someone in my life, and it scared me, because connection can change everything. He leaned slightly against the counter, still watching me, still patient. There was a tension, not the bad kind, but the kind that makes your heart race, the kind that makes you aware of every little detail. Every sound, every light, every breath feels bigger. I didn't know you felt that way," I said finally. My voice was low, unsure. He shook his head. "I always did," he said. "I just never found the right words." I wanted to ask why now, after all this time, but I didn't. The question didn't matter. What mattered was that the walls between us felt thinner, that for the first time, we weren't just two people sharing a house. We were two people truly seeing each other. I watched him, memorizing the curve of his lips, the way his eyes softened when he looked at me. It felt like a revelation. All the ordinary days, all the routines, suddenly seemed different, richer, fuller, alive. The sun streamed through the window, but I barely noticed. Everything was about him, about us, about the shift that had taken place in one quiet, golden morning. Then, almost as quickly as it had begun, he turned away. Not in anger, not in indifference, just turned. The moment ended, leaving me standing there, heart pounding, confused, thrilled, and a little frightened. I wanted to ask him to stay, to talk, to explain, but he left without a word, and I was left with the warmth of his gaze echoing in my mind, reminding me that nothing would ever feel quite the same again. The pancakes were forgotten, breakfast could wait, everything had changed. It was a simple moment, a quiet morning, a glance. But in that glance, I saw years of love and care that had always been there, hidden beneath the everyday. And I realized something important. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes just one morning to really see someone. And when you do, everything changes. I stood there for a long moment, heart full, wondering what had changed in him, and more importantly, what this meant for us. The morning passed, but the memory of his gaze stayed with me. I couldn't focus on anything else. Even the sound of the coffee machine and the smell of breakfast couldn't pull my mind away from him. Something had changed, and I didn't know how to deal with it. He acted normal, though, smiled when he always did, talked about chores, family plans, the usual things. But I could see it in the little pauses, the soft glances, the way he lingered near me just a little longer than necessary. It made me nervous and curious all at once. I kept thinking about what he said, how I amazed him every day. I had never heard words like that directed at me before. Not from him, not like this. I wondered if he had been feeling this way for a long time, hiding it behind ordinary life, behind routines, behind silence. Later, my daughter called from her room. She was planning a small family gathering that evening. She wanted everyone to come over for a movie night. I smiled, feeling a little relief. Normal life, I thought. Just normal. But even then, I couldn't stop thinking about him. He joined me while I tidied up the living room. I caught him watching me again, quietly, carefully. I didn't say anything this time. I didn't want to ruin the moment. Instead, I pretended to be busy, but my heart raced. "You're quiet today," he said softly. "I'm just thinking," I answered, avoiding his eyes. He nodded, but I knew he wasn't fooled. There was something in the way he studied me, like he wanted to understand me completely. And maybe he did. The afternoon arrived faster than I expected. My daughter came down, excited about the movie night. She chatted, laughed, and brought energy into the house. I watched her, but I couldn't help sneaking glances at him. Every time I did, I felt that same warmth in my chest, that same flutter I had felt in the morning. He was helping her set up the living room, folding blankets, arranging snacks, making sure everything was perfect. I noticed the care he put into everything. It wasn't just about the task. It was about making people happy, about making me happy. As the evening approached, I started to feel a strange mixture of anticipation and fear. I didn't understand these feelings. They were new, powerful, and a little overwhelming. All my life, I had thought of him in one way. Now I couldn't. I had to see him differently. When everyone settled down for the movie, I found myself sitting a little closer to him than usual. Our shoulders brushed, just barely, but it was enough to make my heart race. He didn't pull away. He didn't need to. We just sat, side by side, quiet but connected in a way that felt new. During the movie, I noticed how attentive he was, not just to the film, but to me. Every laugh, every sigh, every small movement I made, he noticed. And I realized something terrifying and wonderful at the same time. I wanted him to notice me like that. I wanted him to see me fully, and I wanted to see him the same way. After the movie, he helped clear the snacks while I tidied the room. We worked side by side in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was easy, natural, like we had always done this, but better. We were connected in a way that didn't need words. Then he paused and looked at me again. That look, the one from the morning, was back. Gentle, deep, meaningful. And I realized with a sudden jolt that things were changing between us. That moment had shifted something in both of us, something we couldn't ignore. Then he paused and looked at me again. That look, the one from the morning, was back. Gentle, deep, meaningful. And I realized with a sudden jolt that things were changing between us. That moment had shifted something in both of us, something we couldn't ignore. "I've been meaning to tell you," he started, then stopped. He seemed unsure, hesitant, and for the first time, I saw him nervous. "What is it?" I asked softly, my voice almost a whisper. He shook his head, as if unsure how to put it into words. "It's just, today made me realize how much I've overlooked, how much I've taken for granted." I swallowed hard. My chest felt tight. Could it be possible that he had been hiding his feelings all these years? That he had seen me, really seen me, only now? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. My daughter ran to open it, excited. It was my sister arriving early for the movie night. The moment of tension between us broke for a second, but I could still feel it lingering in the air. Unspoken, powerful, undeniable. The evening went on with laughter, snacks, and small family games. But I noticed him more than anyone else. I caught the way he smiled at me across the room, how he reached for my hand, accidentally on purpose, how he seemed to linger near me whenever possible. By the time everyone left, the house was quiet again. The lights were dim, and the soft hum of the evening made everything feel intimate. I realized that today had been more than ordinary. It had been a turning point. Something had awakened in both of us. Something I wasn't ready to name yet. He finally spoke as we stood in the kitchen, cleaning up. "I don't want to take anything for granted anymore," he said. I nodded, my heart pounding. "It'll be fun," he said. But even then, I noticed how protective he seemed, how subtly he made sure I was okay. When she arrived, she immediately noticed something different. "You two look happy," she said, a teasing smile on her face. We left it off, but I could feel his gaze on me, steady, reassuring. I realized I wasn't imagining it. He was changing. Slowly, quietly, but undeniably. The day went on with small tasks, cleaning, organizing, and talking about plans for the weekend. But every little moment felt more charged than usual. Every glance, every touch, every shared laugh carried meaning now. In the afternoon, we went to the garden to water the plants. The sun was gentle, the breeze soft. He leaned down to pull a weed, and I found myself watching him, noticing the strength in his hands, the calm in his expression, the way he always seemed to know what needed to be done. "You've changed," I said quietly. He looked up, surprised. "I think you have too," he replied. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. We didn't elaborate. We didn't need to. The garden, the sun, the simple act of being together said everything. Later, I found myself in the living room sorting old family photos. He came in, curious, and sat beside me. We flipped through pictures silently. Memories of birthdays, holidays, and small family events filled the room, but I saw them differently now. Every smile, every shared moment, every laugh had new meaning. The day began with small routines, cleaning, laundry, and organizing, but every task we shared felt different. Even folding clothes together carried an unspoken intimacy. Every glance, every brush of hands, every small smile felt meaningful. Later, my sister arrived again. She brought laughter, chatter, and her usual energy. But even in the middle of noise, I noticed him. I noticed how he subtly tried to make sure I was comfortable. The way he moved near me, how his eyes sought mine in passing moments, It wasn't obvious, but I felt it all. At lunch, we sat together. I caught him watching me again, a small smile tugging at his lips. I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just attraction, it was connection, recognition, understanding. "You've changed," I said softly, almost whispering. He looked surprised. "Have I?" "Yes," I admitted, "and I see you differently too." He reached across the table and lightly touched my hand. The gesture was simple, almost casual, but I felt electricity. It was gentle, warm, grounding. I realized then that life could feel this alive in ordinary moments if you were paying attention. The afternoon was spent in the garden. We planted flowers, trimmed hedges, and talked quietly. I noticed how he laughed, how he explained things patiently, how he seemed fully present. I realized I had never truly noticed him before. Not really. "I never told you this," he said suddenly, "but I've always admired you. The way you care for everyone, the way you hold the family together, it's incredible." My throat tightened. I blinked back tears. "I didn't know you felt that way." He smiled softly. "I didn't either, not until recently." The evening came and the house grew quiet. My daughter had gone to her room and my sister had left. It was just us. We sat together on the couch, not touching, just sitting side by side. The silence was comforting, intimate, and full of unspoken words. "I don't want to live another day taking things for granted," he said quietly, his voice almost a whisper. I nodded. "Neither do I." The truth hung between us. We both knew something had shifted, something that couldn't be undone. We had lived together for years, but today, the walls between us felt thinner. I realized that the love and care we had for each other had always been there, but now it felt alive, noticed, and reciprocal. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. My sister's friend had come by unexpectedly. It was harmless, but the timing felt tense. I noticed his subtle protective stance, the way he glanced at me before greeting her. It wasn't overbearing, just quietly reassuring. The night continued with small talk and laughter, but I couldn't stop noticing him. Every word, every movement, every glance carried weight now. Every ordinary moment seemed extraordinary because of him. After everyone left, we cleaned up together. I caught him looking at me one last time before heading to his room. That look, the one I would never forget, held warmth, care, and a quiet intensity that made my heart ache with longing. I went to bed that night thinking about everything that had happened. The mornings, the afternoons, the small gestures, the glances, all of it added up to something I couldn't ignore. I realized that we had crossed an invisible line. Something had awakened in both of us, and it was impossible to go back to ordinary life now. I fell asleep with a heart full of questions, hope, and anticipation. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing. The way he saw me had changed everything, and I wasn't sure I wanted it to ever go back. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, and I felt a quiet anticipation. The air was calm, but charged with possibility. Today felt different, like we were both aware that something had changed forever. He was there, pouring coffee, humming softly. When he looked up and smiled, my heart skipped. That look, the one that had haunted me since the first morning, was back. Warm, gentle, and full of something I had finally learned to name, love. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft but steady. "Good morning," I replied, smiling despite the flutter in my chest. We moved through the morning together, simple chores feeling significant. Folding laundry, watering plants, making breakfast, everything felt more alive. Every touch, every glance, every shared laugh carried a new meaning. Later, we sat together in the living room, talking quietly. He reached for my hand, and this time I didn't hesitate. Our fingers intertwined naturally,
comfortably, as if they had always belonged together. "I never realized," he said softly, "how much I was missing, how much I've overlooked all these years." I squeezed his hand. "Neither did I admitted. But now we see each other, truly." We shared a quiet smile. Words weren't necessary. The connection between us had grown too strong to be expressed by speech alone. I realized that for years we had been living side by side, but only now had we begun truly seeing each other. The afternoon brought my daughter home from school. She noticed immediately that something was different. Her eyes sparkled as she saw the small gestures between us, the way we shared smiles, held hands, and spoke softly. "You two look happy," she said, grinning. We laughed. "We are," I said. It was simple, honest, and true. That evening, my sister stopped by for tea. The house was filled with warmth, chatter, and laughter. Yet I noticed him again. The way he subtly made sure I was comfortable, how his eyes sought mine across the room, and how he seemed quietly protective without being obvious. When she left, the house was quiet again. We sat together on the couch, shoulders touching. I rested my head lightly against his shoulder, feeling the steady warmth of him. He didn't move away. He didn't need to. We were close, connected, and at peace. "I want to tell you something," he said, voice low, almost hesitant. "What is it?" I whispered. He took a deep breath. "I love you, not in the way I said it once, casually, years ago. I love you truly, completely, and I don't want another day to go by without you knowing it." Tears pricked my eyes. My heart swelled. "I love you too," I whispered back. "I have for a long time. I just didn't realize until now that we could be this close." We smiled at each other, and in that moment, the years, the routines, and the quiet, everyday life melted away. What remained was something powerful, something real, something that had been waiting for both of us to notice. The sun set slowly outside, casting a golden glow across the room. We held each other close, quiet, hearts beating together. Every touch, every breath, every glance reinforced what we had discovered, that love could grow quietly, unseen, until the right moment came to reveal itself. That night, as we prepared for bed, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. I realized that life's ordinary moments, meals, chores, laughter, could hold extraordinary meaning when shared with someone who truly sees you. We lay in bed, hands entwined, hearts aligned. I felt his warmth beside me and knew that everything had changed. The way he looked at me, the way he cared for me, the way we truly saw each other, it was the start of something beautiful, a new chapter in our lives. No words were necessary. We didn't need them. The quiet connection, the shared glance, the gentle touch, it said everything. And in that quiet night, I understood. Sometimes it takes years to see the person you love clearly. Sometimes it takes a single day, a single look to awaken something that has always been there. We had finally found it. Finally, we had found each other. The house was silent, but my heart was full. I closed my eyes, holding him close, feeling grateful, happy, and completely seen. And I knew deep down that this was only the beginning of a new, beautiful chapter for both of us. The ordinary had become extraordinary. The routine had become magical. And the love that had always been there had finally been noticed, cherished, and returned. The story of us finally had begun.